thank you for coming to today's Play Attention webinar. We are very excited to have our special guest host here today, Michelle Dunna, who will be talking to you about how to go back to school and ease the homework blues. So she's going to be talking about how to approach homework with some techniques and strategies that will help during those times that may be sometimes a bit of a struggle. Now, a couple of things that I want to mention to you. We are recording this event, so at the end of the webinar, you'll receive an email that will have a link to the recording. That way you can replay the webinar, or you can share it with any staff members or family members that you would think would like to see this webinar as well. Also, if at any time you do have questions, please type your questions in the Q&A box found at the bottom left-hand corner of the screen. At the end of the presentation, Michelle will be answering those questions. She may answer some of them during the webinar, but if she doesn't address your question right away, don't worry. At the end of the webinar, she'll go through any remaining questions. And please do ask questions, because your questions truly do enhance everyone's experience. So at this point, I'm going to turn the camera over to Michelle, and I hope you all enjoy this webinar.
Hi, everybody, and welcome. I trust everybody can hear me. I'd be hearing otherwise if not. So, and thank you so much for being here. The fact that you're here means that you love children and teenagers, and I love them too. So I want us to embrace that we all have that in common. And I am so grateful to Gwen and to Play Attention for this opportunity to allow us to share. What am I going to share today? I'm going to share tips and tricks on how to make your life and your child's life a little bit easier. It's a topic that I'm so passionate about, and I'm super excited to share with you. That being said, I'm so looking forward to this and interacting with all of you. And I'm going to move on with let's let the show go on. All right. I'm going to start with a principle that we may or may not be aware of, and that is that learning is reactive. So in other words, when we learn, we are constantly being put in a situation of unknown. Otherwise, it's not learning. That means that information is being presented to us that's hopefully just a little bit beyond our level, and that we're learning and growing as it's being presented. And as we're expected to deal with it, to assimilate, to integrate new information is all unknowns. This is wonderful, wonderful, wonderful news for the neurotypical brain and for the confident child, even adults, right? It's the way that learning is constructed to be. However, when we have any kind of lack of confidence for any reason, any kind of learning discrepancy, even an age difference. Say there's a huge difference between a 10-year-old who just turned 10 and a 10-year-old who's about to turn 11, and the degree to which they can process new information that's being presented. Our reaction to any kind of newness or anything that seems beyond our level when we are cannot hear me. Okay, can anybody hear me? Is everybody else able to hear me? Can I get a couple yeses? Do I need to get louder? Okay, I'm just going to speak a little bit louder to the microphone. So the way that we approach newness and things that are a step beyond our level can change depending on where we fall in our learning capacities, right? It could do with age, it could do with brain growth, et cetera, et cetera. Any kind of ADD, ADHD will, any kind of ADD or ADHD will slow that process and make it more frustrating. So let's go through some of these, right? How do we handle challenge? How does your child handle challenge? How do you yourself handle challenge? It's called challenge for a reason. It's called problem solving because it is a problem, right? And then there's starting at about, I'm going to say, end of 4th grade, early 5th grade, we get into this thing called multi-step processing. Some brains are ready for that. Some brains are not. When we have like ADD, ADHD, a typical co-occurrence with that is going to be a weak working memory. Working memory really doesn't have that much to do with memory. It's more so our capacity to hold multiple units of information together and to sequence them properly. So when we talk about problem solving, such as a math problem, a word problem, we are adding reading comprehension to multi-step sequencing of steps. And I do have to tell you that my experience with this modern, quote, new math is that it adds more steps than were previously there, thereby increasing the working memory expectations and a working memory demand on a capacity that may be limited. I've seen a lot of instances where we have a breakdown in the steps that will throw off the entire solution to the entire question. Watching your child go through that and how they respond to that breakdown in steps and or their missing step could be a whole chain reaction of emotion. So in other words, something I see frequently is a math problem and we have forgotten to convert one thing, right? We missed a step along the way. The answer is wrong and clunk. The head goes down or we're throwing a fit, right? I'm sure I'm playing out scenarios that many of us have seen before. That can be, that they're just an outlet for the frustration that the children feel when they're not getting the right answer and they feel that they're doing everything that they can. Also, the expectations of critical thinking have gotten very advanced these days. So just for instance, I was working with a 10-year-old boy and we're reading the book, right? And for the curriculum. And they quote a passage and it's a girl book, right? Who wants to read a girl book when you're a 10-year-old boy? Anyway, so they cite a passage and say, what did the speaker or did, the character mean when she said this? So again, I've got a 10-year-old boy saying, I don't know, she just said it, right? Sometimes we're asking things that are already beyond their capacity, but asking them to really kind of step outside the box and take a risk that they really just don't feel confident taking. And here's my favorite thing, this productive struggle, right? So some of the new theories are that students learn best when you present them with a puzzle and an unknown and something that they're supposed to go figure out. So you present a problem, a situation, and you send them off and you make them go find the answer before you've presented the answer to them, right? Or presented them the steps to get to the answer. And they're supposed to engage in the struggle, thereby at the end, creating this effect where they receive the information with so much receptivity that it somehow sticks. And I want to tell you that that's a theory. It's a theory that works very well for neurotypical brains. Again, when that struggle turns over, that productive struggle, right, turns over into any kind of anxiety or any kind of fear that I can't solve this problem, or when we announce like, look, this group got it, then we're reinforcing beliefs in the child that they didn't get it like somebody else did. So, or that, they're less intelligent because somebody else got it first. We're not doing that, teachers, and I say we, right? I taught for 25 years. That's not happening on purpose. It's just going on back in the brain of the child because we're forgetting that learning has an emotional piece to it. We don't just learn, we're not just brains, right? We have emotions that are being processed in the brain along with the information. So it's never solely like academic work, right? We always have emotions that are being processed and evolved along with that. And I think it's really important for adults and teachers to be aware of that at all times. And I think it's important that we teach our children to be aware of that too. I'm going to get into that in the next slide. And then just being put in the situation of not knowing when everybody else seems to be getting it or seems to be knowing. And what happens is that in this learning process is that the child has a thought, right? Oh, so-and-so's getting it, I'm not. That must mean something about me, because children are very me-centered, and it must have something to do with me. It means I'm not good enough, or I'm too slow, or something's wrong with me, or I'm stupid. So when they have a thought, and then that thought gets repeated, we call that a belief. And then that becomes deeply ingrained in their system. So a lot of times what we're seeing, right, is a deep-seated belief and a repetitive belief that they're not good enough, that they're lacking, that they're insufficient in something. And what we're observing as they try to work and get frustrated is the pushback to that belief system. Okay. So when we do have a reaction, it is seated in a limited belief. In other words, I'm not good enough, I'm not smart enough, I'm too slow. I'm sure some of you can fill in the blanks there with other things that children are saying. And that their outbursts, and here's what goes on, is that 8, 9, 10, 11, 12-year-old will have an outburst. Maybe 13 will have an outburst, like, throwing things down, refusing to work, maybe even a tantrum. I've had kids throw themselves on the floor before. These are not chosen. They're just automatic, kind of autonomic reflexes because they feel unsafe. They feel not good enough. And that any kind of further struggle with that is just going to reinforce that belief. And this is a part of themselves that they don't want others to know about. They don't want to confront. They don't want to see. And so they resist. Resistance is natural. It's protective. It's in our system. So at the younger spectrum, we're going to see like kind of more of the outbursts, the flare-ups. Some of you might want to chime in and agree. And then on the older end of the spectrum, as they move on into high school, say we get up to 15, 16, right? We might see, instead of the outburst, what we'll see instead is more of this shutdown. And I know some of us have observed it before, where the kids are just shut down and really kind of dealing with it that way instead. It's all the same thing. It's all the same picture. It's all resistance. And I would say that resistance is seated in deep-rooted fear. The fear is very real to them. So they're caught in fight or flight when they're confronted with their perceived inadequacies. And, then that causes absolute panic. Fight or flight is a state of mind or a state of being where a bear jumps out at you in the woods and you have to decide whether you're going to fight that bear or run like heck. The problem is that in children's brains, they don't always know the difference, and they can't discriminate between whether a bear is jumping out at them in the woods or this homework assignment is going to attack and kill them. Because it is, in a way, it is killing their identity. It's killing their identity as a learner. So their struggle in their minds and in their perception, and they might not be aware of it, is very much a matter to them of life and death. So in the same way, we're going to see some of those responses. And I'm sure some of you have seen it before, where, the eyes might dilate, the palms get sweaty, you might observe a quickening of the heart rate. And then the energy, what's going on is that the blood is pushing out to the peripheries, to the limbs, because that's what happens when we need to run or fight. When that's going on, they cannot process information or get it. They will not be able to do any kind of computation, any kind of reading comprehension, any of that matter. In fact, when I taught, it was the later years of the teaching when I got wiser, right? If ever I saw a student who was deeply upset, deeply triggered, crying, I allowed them to sit outside of class, because there was no way that information, when you have energy going away from the center of the body, away from, the brain where it needs to be flowing, there's no way that they're going to be processing any of that information in the classroom. So I would always send that student out of the class and allow them, and then teach them alone when they were in a more receptive state. Fight or flight, that is triggered, right? And, trigger is very real. Sometimes just looking at an assignment, thinking about a test, bringing up the name of a certain teacher, and you'll start to see it come on. It's because you've hit a trigger in them. It's very real. And the last thing that you want to do as a parent is to react with them. So here's some of the things that play out is, say for instance, your child is at home and working on an assignment, and they just explode. They blow up. They can't do it. It's too much. And then you as a parent, there's various responses to this as a parent. It just kind of depends on, the parent. But sometimes we, well, you better get it done or I'm going to take away your Xbox. Well, then we have this deep-seated fear ourselves that our child is going to not get his or her work done and not be able to succeed and to shine the way that we know our child to be. All right. So some of this touches into our parenting fears. And so often I'll talk to the parents. I laugh hysterically when people think that I'm a tutor, because so much of what I do is emotional intervention, right? So, I'll talk to the parents and I'll talk to the moms or, the dads, and then they feel like they're an awful parent because they can't help their child do their homework, or they can't make their child do their homework. And then they don't know what to do. And then they feel like inadequate as a parent. And how can they not, as a parent, supply their children? So when we have a child interacting or reacting, right? And then that parent who's also in a reactive state reacts against or along the child, wow, it just really perpetuates the cycle. And then the child will feed off of that parent's reaction. And here's something that's interesting to note. And I taught a long time. I think I already mentioned how many years, right? But very seldom does a child have a homework meltdown or a schoolwork meltdown in school. They don't have it in front of their teachers because the teachers are not going to react and feed into it the same way. They don't have it around the other kids because the other kids are not going to react and feed into it the same way. What they do is they save it for us, right? They save it for when they get home because they know that you're safe to have an outburst around, but they also know that they're going to get feedback. They know that they're going to get bounce back, right, for their reactivity. And that somehow in a triggered state is fueling them, and they want to seek more of that. So that's why they save it for us, and it's best to put ourselves in kind of a more observer position and help them process the reaction. The last thing that you want to do is to try to talk, well, besides reacting, right? I already said the last thing you want to do. Okay. So the second last thing that you want to do is to try to talk them out of their emotional state, right? And we've all done this, like, oh, come on, just let it go. It's okay. You're smart enough. You can do this. I'm sure many of us do that. And we're doing the very, very best with what we have, and that is the information that we have. And we know as adults, as coaches, as teachers, as parents, right, that our child does have the capacity to do this work, that our child does have these gifts, but the child is not in that state to receive that information. And I've dealt with emotional states for many, many years now, and in some instances, and it takes some cognitive behavior therapy, right? In some instances, you can deal with thoughts on the thought level and get somewhere. In my experience, it takes time, and it's time that I, as an academic coach, really don't have, because I'm dealing with deadlines for, to help the child gain success in school. The child's dealing with deadlines, and I need quicker tools, more on-the-spot management tools to get that shift that we're looking for. So I stick within the realm as a non-psychologist, right? I stick within the realm of the modalities in which I'm certified. And these modalities are all kind of built to help shift an emotionally reactive state. So in my experience, working as an academic coach, and I'm not going to discount any psychologists or anybody out there who does talk therapy. Talk therapy is wonderful. Many, many times I work in combination with a talk therapist to get the child where they want to be. What I need, right, and what I want to share with you the most are these quick, like on-the-spot things to lower the reactivity and increase their receptivity, and therefore their ability to process information. I bet you we're all ready to hear some of these. Cool. It's really weird not being able to interact with you or see your faces. All right, so let's go on to some of these modalities. Okay, so here's some options, and there are more options actually, but I picked the ones that you can use at home without my help. Wow. So let's go through some of them, because I really want to, I think that we can empower today's youth through strong academics, and that we can improve the academics through their emotional processing ability. Let's see what we got here. Okay, so our options are to shift the reaction to an intention. We can use a tapping process, or we can work more regularly and in advance before the meltdown. They've already kind of got to be in an okay, calm, cool, gathered and relaxed state before we start working with positive visualization. And let's talk about shifting from reaction to intention. The first thing that we have to be able to do is to identify the emotion. And I think some of you, even as parents, might be surprised at, I'm going to call it a deficit in today's kids, to identify what emotion they're feeling. A lot of times I'll get kids who can only tell me they feel bad. That's the depth of their knowledge of what emotions exist that feel reactive to them or don't feel right. They can go as far as bad. Well, I'm like, well, what does bad feel like? And they're like, I don't know. And I'll tell you that a 10-year-old boy, right? And that's kind of like, yeah, okay, I expect that. But when I get 16 and 17-year-olds who tell me they feel bad, and they can't give me any gradient or variant or any qualifier of bad, I'm just like, wow, we have really missed as a society. We've really missed an opportunity to teach our kids what emotions are and how to process them. So we start by just identifying what emotion you're feeling. For those who have kind of they just don't have that vocabulary yet, and we might not all be in touch with that, and that's perfectly fine, right? I'll use emojis on the phone. I'll just say, hey, pick out what one looks like you, and let's come up with a word for it that fits. And they'll point to an emoji, and usually it's going to be angry, frustrated, worried, scared, and sad. Once we have those words to work with, we're in a much, much different place. And those words like angry, frustrated, worried, and sad, like now they become wonderful tools. You may or may not realize that once you identify the emotions, you've hit jackpot, because this is like our gateway, right, to getting them to observe and to shift. And when we get them to observe and to shift, we're just in a different state. So so instead of saying, well, shutting down the anger, the outburst, the frustration, sadness, like just allow them to feel it. Say, okay, so let's go into this sad, or let's go into the, my guess is that when you get them raw, they're going to be really angry, upset, and frustrated, right? Yeah. So I'm going to role play here, right? It's kind of hard to role play when I can't see y'all, but so let's just process, like, let's just be here, like, go ahead, like, go ahead and like feel that angry, sad feeling, feel that upset, right? What does it feel like? It feels like I want to explode. It feels like I want to burst. Like I feel so, good. Now we're getting somewhere. Where do you feel that in the body? Where are you feeling the most? And they're going to be like up here in the head, or down here in the jaw, or sometimes they're going to be in the heart, sometimes in the gut, right? And then, well, on a scale of 0 to 10, how would you rate that feeling? And they're like, well, yeah, it feels like, I've got a ton of bricks in my face. And I rate that at a 7, which is, pretty intense. So if you get where I'm going, I have already kind of gotten them outside of being in that emotional state. They're no longer in the trigger, and all of a sudden now, just through patient listening and through being the observer with them and not reacting, and just get very, very curious, right? They become the observer, and that's not their reality anymore. I'm not going to say they're not angry and upset still, but they're not in it. They're outside of it, looking in, observing it. And already we have kind of like, if any of you study quantum physics, any quantum physicists here? All right, so there's an effect called the observer effect, where molecules changed when they were being observed and measured. They changed their pattern of being sprayed through a tube, through a couple of slots. And when they were being observed and measured, it shifted the pattern that they were sprayed onto a wall, right? So there was kind of something internal in the molecule that made it behave more like a molecule when it was being observed and measured. Fascinating. I got news for you all, is that we all have molecules of emotion, right? And just by putting them in the observer seat, already we're shifting the molecules, because the molecules of emotion are already sensing the observation. And, the observer effect is pretty fascinating. I encourage you to Google that and watch the demonstration. We're not done yet here. Once we've observed it, okay, we put the child or the teenager in the observer seat, we already have a shift, right? And then here's the magic question, right? So once they've gotten their measure, they've observed and say, wow, given the opportunity to create your life, is this what you would choose for yourself? Very rarely will I get a yes, and I could get a reactive yes, like my teacher's a nini taka boo boo, and I made that word up, right? Because they're kind of stuck on that. But I'll always take it back to, well, if I were to put a birthday box in front of you, and you were to open up that box, in that box, would you want to open up that box and have angry and sad and upset in the box? No. And then you do a little bit of education. Well, you know what, sweetie pie, if you didn't choose it, then it was a reaction, because whatever is happening that we don't choose is reactive. Oh, and everybody has reactions. This is not you. This is not your circumstance. This is not your truth. You're just having a reaction. And then something shifts again where we get this kind of like non-judgment, because not only is your child stuck in this state, but they're also still judging themselves for not being able to do their homework. And then we get this like non-judgment effect where it's just like this relief of like, oh, yeah, and it's a natural biological fact. We all have reactions to protect ourselves. Isn't that so cool? And the fact that you wouldn't choose this tells me that you would choose something else instead, right? Yeah. All right. So tool number 1 is borrowed heavily. It's in fact taken from Dr. Darren Weissman's Lifeline Technique System. It's in fact what you see behind me here in this wall chart. He has a 16-step system where if you're really, really serious about creating sustainable change in your life and the life of your child, I would encourage you to sign up for a Lifeline session with me or another practitioner. And the good news is that for children, I've used it frequently with children. I've used the Ignite session, which is much shorter, maybe goes for about 20 minutes. And it steps them through a connection piece that where Dr. Darren is tapping on meridians and gets them connected, body, mind, spirit. You observe, and then you walk through some neuro-linguistically programmed statements designed to bring up and about any resistance. And then you kind of harmonize that resistance. In other words, by resistance, I mean the gap between the conscious and subconscious minds, the intentional and the reactive mind, all the way to the point where you're grounding in and sealing in the intention on a very deep and sustainable level of the child. And the Lifeline technique has been extremely powerful. So that's just taking the intention, tool 1, a step further by doing the Lifeline technique session. That one you're not going to be able to do on your own. You're going to need a practitioner to do a Lifeline or an Ignite. But what I have had happen is tremendous shifts with the Lifeline, wherein a child will move from being very, very overwhelmed, very, very stressed, to feeling 10 pounds lighter. I actually had a child who would have an anxiety attack every Monday on his way to school because there was some deep-seated fear that he was missing an assignment and not prepared for whatever Monday would bring. And his anxiety would get so bad that he would get nauseous on his way to school and sometimes not even be able to make it to school. And I tell you, I went and I did a home visit, and I did, it was like a 20-minute Lifeline Ignite session on him. And the next thing I knew, we didn't have to schedule another session. It all went away. It all lifted. And probably, I want to tell you, about 3 weeks later, after, Mom contacted me and said, hey, we're all good now. We don't have this effect anymore. We don't feel pukey on the way to school. The child came running up to me in the hallway. It's like, Dr. Donna, I'm good now. I don't get nervous anymore, which, was adorable. I didn't want to break his heart and tell him like there would be instances for him to get nervous in the future. But anyway, it was just a wonderful, rewarding experience. And then the other, experience I've had very, very recently using the Lifeline Ignite is I had a senior in high school, who actually vomited during the SAT math portion. And she swore it was an anxiety because she knew the answers to the questions, but she would always get 4 questions in. And during the SAT, she left the room vomiting. And each time she went to practice, she would get nauseous doing the practice SAT. And I had her actually bring in the practice SAT, and I ran a very short Lifeline Ignite on her, and that was it. End of story. No more nausea, and she's now ready to take the SAT on the 25th. So super pleased with that. Okay. So again, the basics of tool number 1 are to observe and catch the reaction. And would you choose this? Get them to a no and just say, okay, you're just having a reaction. I bet you would choose differently. Yeah. Okay. Well, what would you choose? And then what they do choose is all of a sudden their intention, and you've shifted them out of the reaction just through that observation in that choice. Again, if you want to take it deeper, email me, ask me how to get signed up for a Lifeline or Lifeline Ignite. Moving on. Ooh, okay. So I apologize for the small print. It was a lot to put in one slide. You see I've got my Post-it notes over here and my water bottle. Okay, a second tool. Again, very, very, very powerful tool. It's called the tapping technique or emotional freedom technique or meridian tapping. I don't care what you call it, but it is super, super powerful. I can take a child who has just had a fight with their parents and refuses to do any work and get, in fact, speaking from experience, got her to just, okay, let's get some work done. I'm ready now. To, somebody who's having a fit. Children do love this, and it's because it allows them to vent, and it allows them to vent in a very safe and constructive way. And it's a little bit awkward at first because it looks a little bit weird because you're tapping on points of the body while you're saying statements. And I thought it was a little bit weird at first, but that was back a while ago. It's been around since about 1980, and it came from a practitioner, like an acupuncturist, who was trying to get his client to not get so nauseous when she got in the water. And what he did was put her in the water, triggered her to the point where she was feeling nauseous, and then had her tap on the stomach meridian on the cheek, and it went away. So this kind of developed into a system that is great for anything. So you can EFT on anything. It's being used for nowadays pain reduction, any kind of situation you might have going on at work. I have found it extremely effective with children. So what we do is we take our information from the first step. We get the emotions, say, well, let's rate your frustration right now. Let's rate your anger right now on a scale of 1 to 10. I'm at a 9.9999999, right? Okay, great, awesome. Now we've got fuel. We've got something to run on. And we're gonna take that anger 9.9999999, right? And use that in their statements. Okay, so I've got enough time. I think I'm going to demo just a short round of the tapping technique. This drawing is taken, just so I didn't take anybody else's drawing of the tapping points. This is taken from my book, Just in Case School Sucks. And I do have a tapping sequence on there in the book. So this is the image from my book, Just in Case School Sucks. And I'm going to walk you through what that would look like and be like, even though I'm really super angry right now, I deeply accept and appreciate myself. Karate chop point is the setup point, right? Even though just work is making me so mad right now, and my teacher didn't teach me right, and it makes me so mad, I deeply and completely accept and appreciate myself. Even though this homework is totally ticking me off, I deeply and completely appreciate and accept myself. And then we start doing, after the setup point, right? We do 3 statements there, and then we just tap around on the points, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, right? So this is 1. I'm just so mad right now. Oh, I can't do this work. And it's making me very, very angry. And I'm just so mad about it. Why does it have to be so hard? Why does she have to give us so much work? I can't do this. This is stupid. This sucks. Why do I have to do this? I can't do this. I'm not smart enough. I'm not good enough. And I'm too slow. It takes so long to get this done. I'm under the armpit here, right? And I'd rather be doing other things with my time. But I can't do other things with my time because Mom won't let me until I get my homework done. And this is stupid. And this sucks. And I hate being here. And then you would guide them into a possibility, right? a potential, an opening right here. Say, well, I don't want to be here. I don't like this state. I don't want to stay here forever. Maybe if I could just think a different thought. Maybe if I could just try one thing differently. I can do one thing differently. I can ask a question. I can phone a friend. I can email for help. I can take just one step to find out what would get me to a better answer. I'm capable of just one step. I can do this. I'm smart enough. I'm strong enough. This is good. All is good, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And you just kind of want to end up there in a good place. Again, I have a sample script in my book, and he's not my friend yet. I hope one day Nick Ortner will be my friend, like Dr. Darren Weissman is. But Nick Ortner has a lovely, lovely, lovely overwhelm and stress script. It's kind of written for grown-ups, but there's no way in his tapping solution book on page 40, he has an entire script with all the acupressure points for stressed out and overwhelmed. Here's what I would do with that is you could take that particular script and plug in your child's own words. Work with the gold that they gave you in sharing their emotional state with you. Okay? Plug in their words and make it meaningful for them. Use their vocabulary. Any questions? Awesome. Okay. On to the last tool, which is positive visualization. Here's my caveat here. Do not try pulling this on a child who is having a fit. If they're in a state of chaos, this is not the time to say, well, let's just visualize the positive. You'll be very lucky if you don't get something thrown in your face. I know children, I know them very well. The first two tools allow them to vent, and this is nothing of the sort. So if they're in a triggered state, if they're having fits, don't try this, right? Try the first two steps. So what we could do in order to prevent the schoolwork meltdown, the homework meltdown, the studying for a test crisis, right, is do something called positive visualization. And that's where we just visualize a positive outcome when they're already in a relaxed state. So if what we focus on grows, and that's true because we have this reticular activating system, like the reticular activating system picks out evidence of things that we want to see. For instance, I really wanted a Jeep until I got my Jeep, right? I really, 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 really wanted a Jeep. And I just saw Jeeps all around me. And the more Jeeps I saw around me, oh my gosh, I saw the banana yellow ones, and I saw the lime green ones, and I saw the white ones, like the ones I really wanted. I saw the charcoal ones. I just saw Jeeps everywhere. And the more Jeeps that I saw, the more it opened up my reticular activation system to recognize Jeeps. The same is true of thoughts and emotions. If we seek evidence of failure, that's all we're going to see is evidence of our failure, right? And if we focus on our failure, if we track missed assignments, or if we track poor behavior in the classroom, what are we going to get more of? We're going to get more of that resistance. We're going to get more of that poor behavior. We're going to get more of those missed assignments because we're focusing on that. We're actually seeking out evidence, and then the brain will actually fill in with experience and thoughts, right, and play out what it expects. So we use that information, right, along with the information that we don't know the difference. The brain does not know the difference between a real and an imagined experience. So what we do is we combine those pieces of information together, and we create positive experiences in the imagination. Do this when they're relaxed before they go to bed at night, right? Talk about the beach. Talk about something really, really calm and relaxing, and get them to understand, like, hey, what would it feel like right now? Let's just say, like, you were at school and you accomplished your work at school, and you actually you detected before you were going to have like a meltdown. You built that awareness to recognize it before, and you set it aside because you knew that you were going to get stuck on it, and you set it aside and moved on to something else. And not only that, but you asked your teacher the right questions when you were in school, and you had the confidence to ask the questions that you needed to ask while you were in school. And so notice how I'm working here on positive habits. So if you visualize the positive habits, you're going to increase the likelihood of those positive habits where they see themselves asking the questions in school. They see themselves setting the material aside for a little bit, moving on to something else and coming back. They see themselves having the confidence to take care of matters when they're in school, or having the confidence to try to make a mistake and be okay with that. And they see themselves planning out that they're going to be doing their homework in study hall, especially the most difficult subject, so that they're asking the teacher questions where the teacher's available and not bringing it home to you to explode in your face. And so what you want to do is construct this positive scenario, not only with the positive outcome, but with all the scaffolding steps and all the right mindset, right, that it took to get them there. The more you repeat this, the more the brain is just going to relax and accept this as the reality, because again, the brain doesn't know the difference between a real and imagined experience. And if you don't believe me on that, just I'm slicing open a lemon right now, and I'm bringing a wedge to my mouth already. See, I'm salivating, and I got all of you salivating too, right? Because your brain, you're still reacting in the same way, right? Stress is the same way. Emotions are the same way. We can get very upset about a conversation with our boss before we're having that conversation with our boss, right? Or we can get very happy about a conversation with our boss before we're having that conversation with our boss. It's all about perception, really. Okay, I'm really, so those are the tools that I work with. I have a couple others. They require other presentation licenses to present to a larger audience, but these are the ones that I picked out because I love to give people tools to use on their own, that they can develop on their own and practice at home, because as you and I know, we all love kids. So, and all of these tools, tried, proven, and true, have worked for me many, many years in the past. Does anybody have any questions? Here's my contact information. Look up my book on Amazon, Just in Case School Sucks. You can reach me with questions, further questions, Dr. Dona at ihearttolearn.com, or my website, ihearttolearn.com. And here's the deal. If you send me an email at drdona at ihearttolearn.com, what I will do is provide you a free homework planner, a free homework map with a backpack checklist and everything you need to start the school year right, to map all the assignments out so that we're having foresight. So I will send you my free PDF file of that to copy and use on your own. Also, I have an upcoming, soon to be finished video study skills course online. So if you send me your email, I'm also very happy to share information with you on all of that. Are there any questions? I know I spitfired a ton of information because I'm just so excited. Does anybody have? Okay. Anissa, thank you for all of this information. Wow. Aw, thank you, Miriam. Thank you, Anissa. Aw. Yeah, I do love to share lots. I really love helping people out. I'd love to share as much information as possible. Oh, okay. I'm not really getting any questions. So if you do have questions, I love to help. And if I can't, I'll point you to the right resources to get your questions answered. And I did put much information in my book so that more people would have access to this information, especially those who wouldn't otherwise have access to my services. So cool, man. I think I'm gonna stop. I don't see. Yeah, wait. Hold on. I'm viewing from a cell phone. Can't see. Okay. You can't see the PowerPoint. Yes. So Yolanda, if you email me at drdona@ihearttolearn.com, and that's a digit 2. I don't know if you can see my email because it's on the PowerPoint slide. What I'll do is I'll send you the PowerPoint. I do believe, though, that Play Attention will send this PowerPoint out to everybody else in a recording too after it. Okay, anybody else? All right, I'm going to turn it over to Gwen now and stop my broadcast. Thank you all so much. Whoops, that's the I love you sign. Okay, cool. It's kind of awkward.
Thank you, Michelle. That was wonderful. I think it's a great opportunity that we can have as many tips and strategies as possible as we start this new school year, because I know that for many of you as parents, homework is a really difficult time. And so it is great that we have even more tools in our backpack now to use during homework. Now, in addition to the link for the recording that I'll send to you, so everyone will receive an email follow-up, and that will have a link to the recording of this presentation. And I will include Dr. Dona's information, her contact information, as well as information on the book that she showed you there briefly, so that you'll be able to contact her and learn even more. Also, we do have a special thank you gift to all of you here. I know some of you are current clients and some of you are still researching Play Attention and trying to decide if Play Attention is the right tool for you. Keep in mind that if you are looking at Play Attention and considering it for your child or yourself or your clients, we do offer free one-on-one consultations. So if you want to schedule one of those appointments where we can talk about different strengths and weaknesses and customize a plan for you, will be available for that. I'll include a link in there so that you'll be able to register for one of those consultations online as well. Look for that email, look for the special gift that will be in that email. And if you have any questions for myself at Play Attention or Dr. Dona, please do request assistance. That's what we're here for. Also, upcoming every month, we will have a special webinar for you. So next month in September, we will have a special guest speaking about supplements and how to evaluate different supplements to decide what would be best for you or your child. We'll also have in October a special guest webinar with a special guest host, I should say, talking about motor skills and the importance of motor skills in learning. And then November, we'll have a special guest speaking about play therapy. So do make certain that you check back at playattention.com so that you can register for the special webinars. It will always be on the homepage under webinars and then special webinars, and that will have our special upcoming date. Thanks so much, everyone. I appreciate you spending the time with us today. Take care.